Okay, everybody, we've been working on Emmy Awards since January the 1st. 9 months plus later, we're now almost to the ceremony this weekend. And we've done these slugfests before over the last few weeks, especially a few months. But now that we've seen the creative arts winners and now that we know a little bit more, think we know a little bit more, and the ceremony is this weekend, we want to jump in here and give you our picks in all 27 categories coming up on Sunday. We've got our senior editors, Daniel Montgomery and Marcus Dixon. And let's start with drama series, because to me, this was one of the most difficult going into last weekend. We still might be wrong, but going into the weekend, it could have been Stranger Things. It could have been The Crown. It could have been Handmaid's Tale. It could have been This Is Us, Westworld. All of those are new shows. Some people are still making the case for Better Call Saul. I don't think anybody was really predicting House of Cards. But once we saw some of the creative arts winners, Marcus, what are you thinking now?
Well, I had Stranger Things before creative arts. I just want to put that out there. But now I think it's essentially a lock. I'm afraid to use the term lock these days after La La Land losing. But Stranger Things won two very important creative arts awards, and that was Best Editing and Best Casting. When those two line up, it almost always guarantees the winner for Best Drama Series. There are a couple exceptions. There was Boardwalk Empire won both and then lost to Mad Men. And then The Sopranos, I think, won both, but that lost to The Practice, I believe. But every other time, in my quick research, those two lined up perfectly, including Homeland. Remember when Homeland won? It was a huge shock. We should have known because it won drama casting and it won drama editing.
One thing, Daniel, and I switched over to Stranger Things too, so don't get me wrong, but the Emmys didn't help. They helped us in what categories were won by the 5 new shows. But think about this, all 5 of them won something last weekend. So they didn't help us tremendously. It's not like something got totally blanked out and we could go, okay, we could write that one off completely. They all won something.
Yeah, it's but I do agree with Marcus that I also had Stranger Things beforehand, and I was expecting to switch. Whatever one casting I decided is gonna be my prediction, and everything that I was already predicting in the top program categories won. But then you had Westworld at 1-5, which was just as many as Stranger Things won at Creative Arts. Handmaid's Tale won 3, including an acting win for Alexis Bledel, which is good news for Elizabeth Moss, but. This Is Us guest actor also. The Crown won a couple. Even House of Cards won a couple.
And Better Call Saul won an actor. So
sort of won.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're all right. And Netflix, this would be the first streaming service, if it does win, first streaming service to win a big major series award. So it's going to be. I hope that's the last category, because that would be awfully fun. Now, drama actress, going into like early spring, we all thought it was Claire Foy, Elizabeth Moss, and it was like 50-50. But I think over the last few weeks, virtually everybody now is picking Elizabeth Moss. Is that what you both got?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who would be is it Claire, or is it potentially maybe an Evan Rachel Wood, who I've heard several people say they thought she gave the best performance?
Yeah, I actually have Evan Rachel Wood in my number 2 spot. Considering how Westworld overperformed with 22 total nominations, it did better than expected even in the actors branch, and it won 5 awards, though none of them acting awards over the weekend. So yeah, I've got Evan Rachel Wood in second, but I do think Elizabeth Moss is fairly safe.
Yeah, Elizabeth is the safe bet here. Claire Foy could pull it off. She won SAG and she won Golden Globes, but that was before anyone saw Elizabeth Moss. I wonder what would have happened if Handmaid's Tale had premiered, in November or October. Would Elizabeth have beaten her? Possibly, yes.
And here's another example. We've seen this, her old co-star John Hamm. We've seen it with some other people that, not Hugh Laurie this weekend, but sometimes you have the combination of a great performance on a show we know they love, and you're overdue. So I think all of those factors together really, really help her out.
That's how Sarah Paulson won last year too.
All that combination. Now, drama actor, I'll go first on this one. There's been some categories that are tough that I've just not wavered at all, and I felt like Sterling K. Brown would win the whole time. And I don't see the person that's going to beat him myself. And we've seen now, contrary to a little bit of last year, yeah, Milo and Sterling could have a little vote splitting going on, but we've seen that hasn't hurt some people last weekend. Marcus?
Right, because we had 3 SNL guys for a comedy guest actor.
Ricky Minor beat himself.
Right, Dave Chappelle beat the other SNL guy. So, and you know what, Sterling is the perfect example, because Sterling beat the vote splitting last year for People versus OJ. So I think the voters just love him that much. And he was everywhere during the voting phase too. He was doing interviews left and right. I think he interviewed with Petco. I mean, he was
yeah. And yeah, it's interesting. I've been predicting Bob Odenkirk for most of the season, and it's weird. After Creative Arts, I've started funneling my predictions. Like all the switches I've made were from somewhat left field choices into consensus choices. So I actually did end up switching to Sterling because it does feel like he does seem like the obvious choice between the This Is Us actors in terms of who the Academy tends to favor. If this were under the old system where the episode submissions were paramount, I think actually Milo Ventimiglia would give him a run for his money with his episode submission. But yeah, I switched to Sterling. I do think this race is pretty open. This could be a kind of race where we get a kind of Tatiana Maslany style upset potentially from, I can see anyone on down from Bob Odenkirk to Anthony Hopkins, an Oscar winner, Kevin Spacey, who's due and he hasn't won yet. Even Matthew Rhys, who had 2 nominations this year. Like I can make a case for most of these other nominees.
Leo Schreiber had 3 nominations this year.
Exactly, and so basically this is, I know at least predicting Sterling, I have at least a 1 in 7 chance of being right. So that's about as good as I'm going to get.
But it helps Sterling that there's so many other options. I mean,
yeah, we've talked about that before.
He's the front runner, and if all these other guys kind of split the runner-up vote, then that just helps him out.
That works. That theory of mine works when there is a front runner. I think he is the winner, but I don't know that he's like a strong front runner like some categories have, like Elizabeth Moss. It actually has helped Elizabeth Moss that maybe that number 2 factor is splitting between Claire Foy and Evan Rachel Wood, I think. Now let's keep it with the men because I want to devote a little bit of time to the supporting actresses. Supporting actor, I think we've all got John Lithgow.
I have Mandy Patinkin winning.
Not.
No, John Lithgow.
I think he's got everything in the world going for him, from playing a historical character to somebody that's recognizable to way out of his comfort zone to veteran actor to somebody that's already won, I think, 5 Emmys. He's got everything in the world going for him. I think the person I would say might be in second place, I would think about Ron Cephas Jones, but Jeffrey Wright to me is a very interesting pick there as a possibility. What do you both think?
Yeah, I think Ron Cephas Jones and Jeffrey Wright, it's certainly possible that one of them will upset. I wouldn't call that a huge surprise, but it's impossible not to go with John Lithgow in this race.
I like those 2. I also like Jonathan Banks. I mean, I know it's a couple years late for him. He should have won 2 years ago, but sometimes the Emmys are late.
They are. Okay, drama supporting actress. I think this might be the most up in the air race of any of the 27 we're talking about because, on that other one we just talked about, you can make a case for all those guys in drama actor, but really it's down to a couple. You can make a case for all 6 of these ladies and make a strong case. Uzo Aduba was the only winner, past Emmy winner, and she wasn't even nominated last year. Millie Bobby Brown, Tandy Newton, Samira Wiley, Ann Dowd, Chrissy Metz. I had Chrissy Metz for a long time, and I'll tell you who I've moved to after we hear from Daniel.
I've had Tandy Newton in this race since the nominations were announced. It's a borderline lead role. She actually managed to get the SAG nomination for Best Drama Actress over Evan Rachel Wood earlier this year. So we know she has support from the acting community. She's a movie star doing TV. I'm not gonna say I have strong confidence in this one, but after Creative Arts, I didn't really feel any strong sway one way or another, even though Stranger Things had that big success at Creative Arts too. So I'm sticking with Tandy.
If I was a voter, I would vote for Tandy Newton. I think she gave the performance, the best performance in this category. But the Emmys, they may want to see Millie up on that stage. There's no one hotter here than Millie Bobby Brown. She was everywhere this year. She won the MTV award. She was a SAG nominee. She's only what, 11 years old. I think that would make her the youngest winner ever, maybe 12 years old. But
yeah, I think she's 13, but yeah, she'd be the youngest.
I think she'll just go along with the Stranger Things sweep. Usually, the best drama series takes an acting award with it. Game of Thrones was an exception, but usually that's the case.
Yeah, like I said, I can make a case for all of them. Ann Dowd, of course, has had 2 nominations this year. There might be some support there. I know we talked about vote splitting. I think it does hurt when there's no obvious choice among. But Dave Chappelle wasn't the obvious choice for SNL necessarily. I knew people that I liked Lin-Manuel Miranda the best. I think Marcus liked Tom Hanks the best. So I mean, Ann Dowd fits more the mold of Maggie Smith winning here. That veteran actress. She's really the most veteran of the 6. I had Chrissy Metz for a long time, but I'm like Marcus. I think this Millie Bobby Brown, if you just close your eyes and imagine the people that most impacted the TV season, I think she's one of the top 10 or so you would think about. Kind of like Rami Malek last year, just an impact on the whole season and a memorable impact. So
Right.
That's why I'm going that route, even though I know they don't typically choose younger at the they're more likely to choose a younger supporting actress at the Oscars than they are the Emmys. Okay, directing and writing. Let's look at those. Let's start with directing. We've got Better Call Saul, The Crown, 2 for Handmaid's Tale, Homeland, Stranger Things, and Westworld. We'll let Marcus start on this one.
This is a really, really hard one. I've had many different things in my #1 spot, but with Stranger Things on such an uphill, not an uphill climb, such a trajectory toward the top, I have Stranger Things winning directing, and skipping ahead, I have it also winning writing. And I know Game of Thrones won both last year and the year before. So sometimes there's sweeps that we see. Sometimes there are just huge sweeps. And I think this could be a year, and I'm hoping I'm right that it's Stranger Things. It could be Westworld that sweeps, and I could get all of these wrong.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was what I was about to say but one thing we also noticed last weekend, we talked about this at the very beginning, they do seem to be splitting up their support this year across all the shows. So where is the Westworld win? I'll talk about for next week. Where is the I'm kind of thinking about where strategically maybe where are the wins for various shows, but I had another one that I had from the beginning was Stephen Daldry winning. Sometimes they go with the most famous film director, and he would be the most famous, I think, out of that group, and multiple Oscar nominee. I could still see that happening, but I also think Stranger Things is a visual show. So I do think maybe directing there, and I'll do like Marcus and go ahead and give my writing pick. I don't think Stranger Things will win writing. I think Handmaid's Tale wins there. Handmaid's is helped by the fact that it has 2 directing nominations, so those could split, but it only has the pilot for writing. So I think that helps it win writing. And because it's based on a novel and it's an adaptation and it's very literary, I think that all those things help it. Daniel, what do you have in directing and writing?
I'm the same as Marcus. I've had it since the beginning, even since before Creative Arts, because I've just been going on a hunch of the Game of Thrones thing where it won writing, directing, and series. So I'm like, whatever won casting at Creative Arts, I was going to pick for writing, directing, and series, and it was Stranger Things, and it's what I already had. I'm a little bit more worried for Stranger Things in writing than directing because it's not the most obviously writer-driven kind of show. I think Handmaid's Tale, that pilot episode, is certainly its closest threat. But then I look back at like last year, it's like, does anybody remember Battle of the Bastards for the Sparkling Wit and Dialogue? But it still won Best Writing. And I think it's because, well, if that branch of the Academy just likes you, they just like you. And so I'm going kind of all in on Stranger Things in these three categories: writing, directing, and series.
I will say a former writing winner was Homeland for the episode Q&A, which was kind of like a play where it was just very talky. The one that's very talky in this category that worries me is Better Call Saul Chicanery. It was a courtroom episode where it's brother going against brother, and if I was a voter, I may vote for that one because it's so writerly, like you said, Daniel, and it's very, very good also. But I don't know if the voters will go that way.
Okay. Well, let's move on to comedy. If there were any doubts about Veep winning comedy series a third year in a row, I think they've been, in my mind at least, they've been resolved. It won more at Creative Arts than it's ever won before. So I think the support, and we saw this on nominations, is even going up, if that's possible, in a show this late in the run. Atlanta did not win anything, and I think that was its closest competitor. Maybe if there is a close competitor, it's Master of None, and not Atlanta. But both of you have Veep, is that correct?
Mm-hmm. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Master of None did win one Creative Art, but
right, that's what I'm saying. It's showing its support.
But Atlanta won nothing, Blackish won nothing, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Silicon Valley, Modern Family. This is the opposite of the drama race. The drama race spread equally amongst everything. This, it was just Veep, and Master of None did get one, so that it's very different. But yeah, I'm picking Veep here. It's hard to bet against Veep based on the year it had with nominations and with Creative Arts wins.
Well, to be fair, though, about Atlanta, it only had one Creative Arts nomination, and that was for Best Casting, which went to Veep, which is, of course, might be the canary in the coal mine if you're Atlanta, because the Best Casting winner, Veep, the last 2 years in a row, won Best Casting, won Best Comedy. But to be fair, Atlanta we haven't seen most of what Atlanta can do, because 5 out of the 6 nominations it has are coming up this weekend.
I would throw in also, though, one thing in the back of my mind was if there was a swing or movement toward Atlanta, I was kind of, even though he wasn't nominated for Atlanta, I was kind of like looking at Brian Tyree Henry as well in his category, thinking, if he can pull that off in drama guest actor, it might be showing us some real Atlanta support. Anyway, it didn't happen, but I thought that might be a possibility. Sometimes they'll look at somebody and go, oh, they've got multiple nominations. So maybe that's why Ann Dowd, I think, is a competitor there for drama supporting actress. And we've all got Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I think it goes back to the theory I always talk about of, yeah, I think there is a contingency that would like to take her down, but person A in that contingency might be going for Tracy Ellis Ross, and person B might be going for Allison Janney, and another person might be going for Pamela or Ellie Kemper or Lily Tomlin. So I don't think there's a strong enough second place person that can pull away from Julia. Is that what you're both thinking?
Yeah, I think, and honestly, and with the announcement that Veep is ending after its next season, I think we might see a clean sweep from Julia, especially like if they give her like a death episode, like for her finale, just Selena Meyer's huge Black Swan style tragedy.
So you think she's going to win 7 in a row because next year will be the season 7?
We haven't seen anyone stop her. Statistically speaking, she shouldn't have done what she has done already. She should not win a 6th statistically. It should be very hard to do that. But and we saw it SAG with Alec Baldwin. It's like sometimes they're just going to keep checking that same box over and over again.
Wow.
System that's more possible than ever. I mean, we'll see what happens with the next batch of episodes and how well the show does overall. But I honestly can't see who beats her on the horizon just yet.
Well, do we all have Allison Janney in second? I think she would be the one that could beat her if anyone beat her, because she did this with The West Wing too. She won twice in supporting, then she went up to lead, and she won twice in lead. Mm-hmm. So it could happen, but I'm not banking on it.
Well, and this is kind of inside, but Marcus and I always look to see who goes to that There's 2 performer receptions. One is early while they're voting, and one that's was a couple or 3 weeks ago, and then one is the weekend of the Emmys, so it has no impact on the outcome. But we saw last year some people showed up at that performer reception. They shake all the hands of all these acting voters, and they those people at the party, and it's hundreds of them, take mental note of, okay, who's out here talking to me and who's out here campaigning, and Allison Janney, I think, was the only one of that group.
Tracy
Lily
was
Tomlin was
there.
there. She's Tracy Ellis Ross. So 3 out of the 6 were there. Anyway, you never know. We heard directly from RuPaul's people last year that they felt him going to that pushed him over the top. Just talking to voters, talking to actual acting branch member voters. And that brings me to the next category, which has Anthony Anderson in it. He was the only one of his 6 at that party. That's who I'm picking right now. I haven't seen this year anybody go harder on a campaign than Anthony Anderson. He really wants this Emmy. I think it's an open race, so it's not like a situation where he's up against a Julia and has basically no shot. I think it's probably 3 or 4 of these guys could win, and I'm gonna keep him in my first place slot just on effort alone.
I would love for him to win. This is a really tough race. I wish someone from Veep was nominated here because I would pick them, but they don't have a lead actor, of course. I made a switch 2 days ago after, on Saturday's Creative Arts, we saw a lot of repeat winners. We saw RuPaul. We saw, I'm going to blank on some of these. But I remember, Chris, you and I were talking about, oh my gosh, they just repeated everything. Shark Tank, for example. So I just think Jeffrey Tambor is going to do it again. Again, there's no front runner. I know Donald Glover has a lot of support from the experts, but that's not the type of role that they usually go for. It's not an over-the-top funny role like a Zach Galifianakis.
Like Tambor?
Well, Tambor, we know they don't care if he's funny or not.
Well, yeah, but nobody's done that in that category in 30 years.
That's why I'm not going with Glover. That's why
it fell out of comedy series. It fell out of SAG Ensemble. I don't think that's happening.
This is the hardest category for me. We got virtually no guidance from Creative Arts on where any of these shows are because, Master of None won for editing. That's not necessarily going to help Aziz Ansari with the acting branch. And same with William H. Macy. Shameless won stunt coordination. But otherwise, we don't know where any of these shows or actors stand. I've been torn 3 ways between Glover, Tambor, and Anderson this entire time. And I have Glover right now by default, but I honestly could switch that 3 times today for all I know. I have no confidence whatsoever. I think it's going to be one of those 3. And I still think the other 3 could potentially upset. But yeah, I don't know what to do here.
I switch this one every week. I really do. I've had Zach Galifianakis at number 1. I've had William H. Macy at number 1. So no matter what happens on Emmy night, I'm going to be like, I had him, and I switched, no matter who it is.
I think the one we didn't talk about enough there was Macy. He's won for this role at SAG twice, including this year. And sometimes we look at a list and go, okay, I'm going to go most respected actor. And he's Tambor certainly, but Macy has the film career too. So I think Macy's the most respected actor in the group. And like you just said, Marcus, it's not like Shameless is never won Emmys. It's won 2 years in a row in stunt coordination. So that's a whole different voting block. But we've seen, now that this is only our 2nd year of this Emmy system, Macy, it's sort of similar to the SAG voting system. So that's not out of the realm.
Joan Cusack won a couple years ago. So the acting.
That's true. That's true. So they have voted. That's right.
He can do it easily. Yeah.
Comedy supporting actress. I think we're all in the same mindset. If it's not Kate McKinnon, it's got to be Judith Light. But Kate McKinnon, especially after all the SNL wins this weekend, that's pretty much a lock, right?
I wouldn't go as far as to say a lock. I had Judith Light to upset for a while, but after Creative Arts, I switched to McKinnon just because, if vote splitting didn't hurt Dave Chappelle, and Dave Chappelle wasn't even the obvious choice to win of those 3 SNL hosts, then McKinnon's probably not going to be hurt by Jones or Bayer. So if she's going to lose, there has to be another reason she loses. And Judith Light had a great season on Transparent. There could be enough people who just want to give it to her.
Right.
I agree, it's one of those 2, but I'm now playing it safe with McKinnon.
And of all things, Kate McKinnon submitted the Dave Chappelle episode, so we know they like that episode.
Right, and that's the one, in case people don't know, she opened the episode as Hillary Clinton at the piano singing Hallelujah. One of the most viral moments in the history of SNL. If she can't win this year, something's really wrong with the voting, and it may be because of the vote split if she loses. But I think Kate's the safe bet.
Are you also on supporting actor going SNL with Alec Baldwin?
I've never switched from him. I think this is one of the obvious ones to me, and I know a lot of people disagree with me there, but no one was bigger than Trump being played by Alec Baldwin. It was everywhere. It was so viral. Even the president is tweeting about this performance. You don't even have to watch SNL to know how funny Alec Baldwin was this year.
Yeah, I've got Baldwin too. I think if he had one obvious choice as a rival, as we've discussed before, it might be more likely for him to lose. But again, some people who might go with Titus Burgess. Some people might go with last year's winner, Louis Anderson. It's hard to know which of them is closer in my mind in terms of possible upset. But without being able to choose one of them as likelier to pick this up instead, I got to go with Baldwin.
Well, I've had Burgess for forever and ever, and I would love to see that happen. He loves Gold Derby. He's won 3 Gold Derby awards in a row for this category. But I switched over to Alec Baldwin. It just seems more obvious to me now off the SNL. The fact that Dave Chappelle won tells me, the acting branch is really embracing SNL this year. So
it's going to win 4 acting. That's very rare for any show to win 4 acting awards.
I think it might be a first.
Oh, there's an article. All the ones that have won 3. So
Angels in America did win 4 in movie miniseries, but I think for a series like a comedy or drama, I think this is a first. But I would have to double check.
Well, let's not say a whole lot about writing. I think we've all got Thanksgiving, Master of None. Aziz Ansari wins that again. I can't imagine him losing that. So unless you want to both say anything. Directing, though, is quite interesting, especially in my mind after thinking about this. Nothing that happened over the weekend, but just as you're driving down the road or you're just thinking about a category. And I started thinking about it. I'll write an article in the next day or so and research this, because as we record this, I haven't looked back. But none of the 3 of us can remember an actor winning for directing at a pure actor, somebody that really that's all they do anymore. A pure director. Let me back up. Somebody that was an actor has won in recent years as a director, but not somebody that's doing both anymore. I think you have to go back, and especially in comedy, to maybe like a Betty Thomas close to 30 years ago, but she had given up acting to focus on directing off of Hill Street Blues. And before that, you had Alan Alda, who was on MASH for 11 years and directed a ton of their episodes and wrote a ton of their episodes. So I don't know. Remember, only a branch. It's not like the Oscars, where at this stage, at the Oscars, actors are voting on cinematography and costume designers are voting on sound design and all of that. That's why you can get in a sweep mode. It's just directors voting here. And I just don't, they're very territorial. I don't see them going for a pure, basically an actor. Even though to all of us, it makes sense strategically, because he has no vote splitting, and then you got 2 Silicon Valleys and 3 Veeps. So what everybody on our website pretty much is picking him. What do you both think? What do you think, Marcus?
It's I thought it was kind of a lock until you told me this yesterday, and you could be right. And if Donald Glover ends up losing directing, it probably means that groundbreaking from Veep 1, which is the
think about like Louis
showrunner.
Louis C.K. could win for directing, could win for writing. Aziz Ansari, Lena Dunham, Larry David didn't direct. There's been bunches of them. I mentioned on the drama. It's not just comedy. On the drama side, like Steve Buscemi directed one of the best Sopranos episodes ever, and at the time wasn't even an actor on the show. They brought him in as a director. Couldn't win. So I think there's a reason behind. It's not just like a trend thing, a statistical thing. I think directors look down on actors, that are trying to join. They don't mind them joining the DGA, but they don't necessarily want to give them an Emmy for it.
I will add, is there a woman director nominated here? Because the past 4 in this category went to women. Jill Soloway won twice, and then Gail Mancuso won twice.
I don't
mentioning. Oh, go ahead, Daniel.
I don't believe any of these are women. From they just checking the. Oh no, I'm sorry. Jamie Babbitt is a woman who directed one of the Silicon Valley episodes.
Well, that's why you mentioned Jill Soloway. I'm thinking about Stephen Levitan. That's why, in my mind, if you were to say, okay, let's just take off Atlanta off the table for a moment, what would it go to? We've seen it many times over the years go to the director that's also the showrunner. They do seem to embrace that. So that's why I'm going with the and David Mandel has the season finale. It jumps all over time. So I could see a director looking at that going, that's a pretty good achievement.
Right. And if there is a vote split possibility, he would be the one that got the most out of that vote split.
I think so. That's how I'm moving over to.
Could happen.
I still have banned from Atlanta though. It still feels like, it's possible this could be the one award it wins this year, because Donald Glover isn't by any means safe for a comedy actor. So it's probably the most obviously directed. It's the only nominee for the show in this category, and it's a brand new system from last year, so we don't have that much to go on in terms of whether the TV Academy Directors Branch will kind of reject an actor trying to direct. So I'm sticking with Man.
I will say Atlanta's the most critically acclaimed comedy of the year, and if it goes home without winning anything, that will make a lot of people upset. So I may actually switch to Donald Glover for acting. I may keep him here in writing. It's going to win something.
Maybe we're just totally wrong on the writing side. Maybe he wins for writing.
And
maybe that's where they pick up their win.
Veep actually won writing 2 years ago for the election night episode, and now Groundbreaking is another very, very standout episode. So Veep could win writing.
We're just going off of Master of None winning last year mainly, and Thanksgiving was hugely acclaimed. Okay, we won't spend a lot of time on these last few. I think we've all got Big Little Lies, a limited series.
No, I don't.
You're switching.
I made a huge switch yesterday to the night of, actually. And
that's just stupid.
It's not stupid. The night of was...
I'm punching you on the shoulder backstage when you get that one wrong.
Extremely critically acclaimed. Listen, at Gold Derby, you can keep switching. You're not locked in. You can
one casting
until the morning of.
Which, by the way, casting for that project consisted of Reese Witherspoon picking up a phone and calling her friends.
Exactly. The night of won.
And it won casting.
The night of won 4, including editing, right, Daniel?
Yeah, it won editing, picture editing, sound mixing, and cinematography, which I'm not going to say are necessarily maybe picture editing is its best.
Editing is, yeah. But look, what was the most important limited series? And I'm not sold on the night of. I have it at number 1. The night of is very, very important culturally to what's happening today. Big Little Lies is not. Feud kind of is with the women empowerment issue that's going on, especially after Hillary Clinton lost. What's most important? The night of. Also, you have 2 female skewing shows. This is Tom O'Neill's point that I'm stealing. Big Little Lies and Feud, they could cancel out the woman vote if there is one. And the night of could benefit from that as well.
Yeah, that is the one thing I'm worried about. I do think Big Little Lies and Feud might appeal to a similar voter. But I still don't think that's enough with Big Little Lies winning Best Casting. It's been the front runner all this time. It drastically overperformed being a contemporary show. So it doesn't have like the lavish production values you would expect to have picked up 16 total nominations. I personally would vote for the night of because it was my favorite limited series of the past year. But I can't go against Big Little Lies here.
What do we? I've got Black Mirror on TV movie, but I do think Sherlock is right there. What do you both have?
Yeah, I have Black Mirror, and I think Sherlock is right behind it. I even still think Wizard of Lies is still in it because it was the only, can we talk about casting being a telling category? It's the only TV movie that got in for casting. Didn't win, so even though support for that was a little softer than we expected, I still think it's got a shot, but I do have Black Mirror.
I have Sherlock. I don't see them going for a sci-fi show. I can't. I can't wrap my mind around that. And you know, Black Mirror, it may be in the wrong category. A lot of people think it should have been in limited series, so maybe that will affect a couple of voters too.
It could. It's the only one of the 5 that got into writing or directing. It got into writing, so I think that to me weighs. And we were talking backstage the other day about possible changes, and I also said and it's the only Netflix, and Netflix. We've seen at SAG especially, and now even at the Emmys, when it comes down to like this or that, and the voter has a Netflix option, they'll go Netflix. It seems like
Right.
it's like the thing that everybody seems to watch.
Sherlock won last year in quite a big surprise. So I just don't count it out.
And Sherlock beat a bigger frontrunner last year because All the Way had a lot of support last year, and Sherlock didn't have writing and directing. All the Way, I think, had one or both. So
Sherlock had one or the other last year.
It did not.
Not writing or directing nominations?
Not writing or directing. It did win writing a year or two earlier when it's had that surprise run of awards. But yeah, it didn't have a writing or directing nomination last year.
Okay. One that we've debated for months is movie mini actress. I think for a long time we couldn't even narrow in our minds down off of the 6 or 7. We just. But I think it is down to Jessica Lange, Nicole Kidman. I think you would both agree with that. I'm going Nicole. Even at our Gold Derby Awards, the sheer amount of support at a website that really goes Jessica Lange really convinced me. What are you thinking, Daniel?
Yeah, I think Nicole Kidman. It could be a kind of sweep sort of situation where Olive Kitteridge picks up Best Limited Series and picks up a bunch of acting awards, and People vs. OJ won Limited Series and picked up 3 out of 4 acting awards also. So I feel like if they're going Big Little Lies for Limited Series, which I think they are, I think they're gonna go with it here just as easily.
I'm sticking with Jessica Lange. What do we know about acting branches at award shows? They love when someone plays a real character, and when not a real character, a real person. And they can compare the differences between a Jessica Lange and a Joan Crawford. And she really, really excelled. And I could be wrong. I'm willing to admit Nicole Kidman is looking really, really strong here. Carrie Coon could be a surprise winner too if there's a vote split. But I'm sticking with Jessica, the one that we know the voters love. She's won 3 times already.
That's true, and they don't necessarily remember that. Movie mini actor, we've all had different ones here over time. Marcus, who have you got right now?
Riz Ahmed. I was very, very hesitant about this, but Zach Laws brought up a really good point. If they only watch one episode of the night of, the first one, he's in it from front to back. He is the star of that episode. After that episode, he kind of takes a back seat to John Turturro, who's also nominated, but John Turturro is hardly in the pilot at all. Riz Ahmed is also having a fantastic year. He was nominated for Girls. He was in a big blockbuster movie. So I think he's the safe bet.
Yeah, I've had Jeffrey Rush for most of the season. He's a past winner in this category. He's, a beloved Oscar winner. It just feels like who they'd go with. But then I switched to Riz Ahmed, and I might switch back to Jeffrey Rush at some point. I feel like it's going to be one of those two. But Riz Ahmed, given how well the Night Of did at Creative Arts, and again, not with the acting branch, but because the acting branch didn't have any awards that were contested at Creative Arts for movies and miniseries. But and with our Gold Derby Awards, he beat his co-star John Turturro handily, so it didn't seem like there was a vote split there. It feels like if there's going to be someone's going to pick a Night Of actor, they're going to pick Riz Ahmed. And also he feels like kind of in a similar situation as Rami Malek was in last year. He was up against an Oscar winner who seemed like a reasonable choice for, the Emmy voters love Reputation. And they could have gone with Kevin Spacey last year for drama actor, but they went with the breakout star of Mr. Robot. And I'm thinking a similar thing might happen here, but I really do think this one's still very close.
I switched over to Riz Ahmed. I had Jeffrey Rush when nominations came out just because the show overperformed way more than we thought it would. for weeks leading up to that, I thought it was easily going to be a Robert De Niro kind of a year. We've seen, an Al Pacino and other just big name actors that come to TV, like legendary actors. All 6 of these are like film actors, but you only have a few legends, and Robert De Niro is one of those. They often, it's like they say, "Oh, thank you for coming to TV," and they give them an Emmy. But I don't see that happening anymore. I do think it's Riz Ahmed.
Remember Matthew McConaughey couldn't win for True Detective, and
right.
That may be a similar instance here with Robert De Niro.
That was in the wrong categories, though. That should have been a limited series. But anyway.
That's true.
Yeah, and that he was up against the buzzsaw of that final season of Breaking Bad. So.
That's right. That's right. It's not easy at all. Movie mini supporting actress. I'll start first there. I've had Laura Dern from the beginning. I've just never wavered. Way back, I thought Judy Davis, again, playing a real life person that they all know. But Judy doesn't care about this stuff. She won't be there. She doesn't campaign. I feel like Laura Dern's another one, even though she doesn't do a ton of TV, she's still overdue. She's really, had several nominations, and there was one year, was it Recount, that, everybody thought she was going to win, and she didn't win. So I think this might be her time.
Right. She's one of the few that is a movie star / TV star. She had Enlightened. She was in Twin Peaks, right, as voting was going on. I know her character came in later, but that certainly helped. I as someone who did not like Twin Peaks, she was the standout.
I had Regina King in this category for so long. She's up against a bunch of co-stars, who could split votes, and she's won the last 2 years in what really seemed like tougher competitions than this one. Last year she beat Jean Smart. Jean Smart looked like a lock for Fargo last year. But after Creative Arts, I slid back to Laura Dern. In terms of vote splitting, she and Shailene Woodley have similar prominence in terms of their roles. Actually, Shailene Woodley has a slightly larger role, but Laura Dern, in terms of her reputation in the industry, she's been working much longer. This is her 6th Emmy nomination. She's an Oscar nominee. I switched to Laura Dern, but I do think Regina King is the spoiler in second place more than Judy Davis.
Laura's also got that scenery chewing over the top.
Yes.
that we do talk about that they tend to like.
The classic David Kelly character, the screamer, right. The yeller. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to We're gonna have to update our gallery of his 38 Emmy winning acting performances, because he might have three more.
That's true.
And speaking of that, movie minis. I think I've had 3 different people picked here. But who do you have right now, Marcus?
Oh, this is a toughie. Right now I have Alfred Molina for Feud, but I know a lot of people who really loved Molina. A lot of people really loved Tucci. That's a classic kind of vote split scenario. Alexander Skarsgård is by far the most, internet loved person, but does that translate to voters? And then you have these night of guys that I would say between Bill Camp and Michael Kenneth Williams, that Bill Camp maybe has a better shot. And then you have David Thewlis, who really, really stood out in Fargo. I give up.
Scenery chewing.
I totally give up. I'm picking no one.
That'll work.
I have a similar problem in this category. I have no idea. I'm picking Molina also. He has probably the largest role in this category and the most sympathetic.
True.
And, he's been nominated before. He's the kind of character actor, the veteran who they often go for in this category. Alexander Skarsgård just doesn't feel like he fits any kind of profile of an Emmy winner in this category.
No, not at all.
See, let me jump in there. This is what we were talking about in the car yesterday, Marcus and I. All summer I've been saying, on that category, in my mind, just to me, I'll go, it won't be him. It can't be him. That can't be a reason. That can't, no, to me, in terms of my picks, he way overwhelmingly had the support on our Gold Derby Awards. And I kept saying to myself, oh, that's a Gold Derby thing. That's an internet thing. But then I started thinking about it. And if, like you said, last year, OJ 3 acting awards. The year before, Olive Kitteridge 3 acting awards. There's no reason why Big Little Lies couldn't get 3 acting awards. And he doesn't even have the vote splitting weighing him down here like some of the other people that we're talking about. So it's a memorable role. I didn't particularly like the character, but I don't think I was supposed to like the character. So I'm going Skarsgård.
I like, Daniel, what you said about Alfred Molina being the sympathetic one, because
Absolutely.
that really could help. And Skarsgård really does play a villain, and not a villain you like
But Stanley Tucci is that literally the mustache twirling kind of a villain. I mean, that they tend to go for. And both of his past Emmy wins were surprises. So, he might be, well, I don't know. I was going to say he might be the most respected actor in the group. He's the only Oscar nominee. So that's who I had for a long time, thinking I'm going to pick up one here that nobody else is picking. But I think this Big Little Lies sweep mentality is real.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's possible, but I feel like, even Olive Kitteridge lost something. Like, People vs. O.J. Simpson didn't have a supporting actress, so it went 3 for 3 in terms of its categories. Big Little Lies, Olive Kitteridge lost supporting actress. It got in for like Zoe Kazan.
But it still won 3.
It still won 3, but it did lose.
2 of those 3 were not done deals. I mean, not a lot of people were picking Richard Jenkins. Not a lot of people were picking Bill Murray.
But in this case, I just can't get past, and I could be wrong, certainly, because
I could definitely be wrong here, but I started just thinking to myself of my reason for not choosing him can't be me just saying that won't happen.
Yeah,
I need a reason. I couldn't come up with a reason.
It's not. The thing about Skarsgård's performance, and not even to do with his performance, just his character, it's not as dimensional even as the villains played by Tucci and Thulis. It's fairly, he comes on, he glowers, and he assaults Nicole Kidman, and rinse and repeat. And that's the kind of he plays. He's sort of kind of the monster of the piece, but not in a memorable speech-giving way like David Thewlis. I think David Thewlis could also win this one. And it's not as he doesn't have the charm and charisma of the kind of dastardly.
I agree with everything you're saying, but people win at every award show. Somebody or more than somebody wins that I don't particularly care that they won.
It would certainly make more sense than Ben Mendelsohn last year. So
I'll say it: the voiceover winner this past weekend and the year before. We looked at each other shocked because I thought he would have been in last place. McFarlane. So
that was another repeat I couldn't remember earlier, where there was a lot of repeats this year, and we could see that carrying on. What about directing and writing?
Well, I've got Big Little Lies directing. I'm not going to go off of that. There's so many different ways it could go there. I don't think Night Of, because of the vote splitting, I don't know how they would choose between the two.
Mm-mm.
But then you've got Ron Howard. You've got Ryan Murphy. That was my favorite episode of all of these. Fargo is so visual. And then Big Little Lies, who I'm picking, that's another film director who they really respect, I think. It reminds me, though, on the directing side, last year was a similar kind of a lineup with multiple nominees, and I think I went Ryan Murphy last year. But anyway, Night Manager, just like Big Little Lies, submitted the whole thing and not just a part. And that helped her win, I think, along with vote splitting. And I think that's going to help Big Little Lies here.
I'll just say everything you said. And Daniel, what about you? What do you think?
I've got Big Little Lies. I think it's, because it's all 7 episodes, that helps it. It doesn't have a vote splitting, that helps it. It's the limited series frontrunner, that helps it. I do think there is a slightly more obvious choice for The Night Of, and that's The Beach, which is directed by Zalian, who directed 7 out of the 8. Like the Art of War, the other nominee in this category, and actually it might be a sign of support for The Night Of, because its only other nomination was the only other nomination it could have gotten, because I think it's James Marsh who did the Art of War, the only other director for The Night Of, so they got in both of the episodes that they submitted. Ron Howard, the Oscar winner in this category, I wouldn't rule out. But yeah, I'm going Big Little Lies for directing. And
who have you got for writing?
It's a tougher choice for directing. I think Big Little Lies is a slightly easier choice for me for writing.
No. You, Mr. Night Of, you're wrong.
Yeah.
For me now, I had Big Little Lies for a long, long time, but Steven Zalian, is it Richard Price? That writer's branch will eat the fact that they're in there. They're going to eat that up. And David E. Kelley, although he has a ton of Emmys, didn't even get nominated a lot of years for writing. I think the writers are a little jealous of him, especially back in the day, because he would have so many shows on at once. Yeah, there were years he didn't even get nominated, and they would win Best Drama. And he doesn't have that many. His writing wins from early in his career. So I don't think that's going to happen. I think if the Night Of had 2 here, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But the fact that it only has 1, and we talked about it's a very writerly kind of a project. Anyway, I think that was easy.
Yeah, it's the legal show. Voters love legal programs. This is after, I think, Chris, you're the one that convinced me yesterday about the Night Of for writing. I do have David E. Kelley in second for Big Little Lies. I would love for him to win. And also, don't forget Marsha won last year. It despite a vote split, and that was the episode they showed at their Emmy reception to hundreds of voters. So if we see that happen again, then the Oscar episode will win, and we'll know why. If the Oscar episode wins for Feud, we'll know why, because they showed that one to the voters.
Okay, just a couple left here. Marcus, reality competition?
I think RuPaul. I think RuPaul's Drag Race is having one of those breakout years that you just can't ignore. I mean, RuPaul won reality host for the 2nd time in a row last week, and it won a couple other technical races. I forget which one.
Had more nominations than ever, if you count in the other program.
Right, but The Voice is by far the most watched.
And there's your repeat there too.
Years. Right, so it's between those two, I think.
Yeah,
I switched over to RuPaul after this past weekend.
I did too. I had The Voice until then. I still think The Voice could win. It's one of those interesting things. The Voice is the most watched by far, but if you looked at Creative Arts, it's the most watched. But does everyone who watch it think, oh, that's the best reality series this year? And then it didn't win anything over the weekend.
If it's a tight race, then that one could be. I think it's one of those like an A or a B for most voters, I think. Mark Burnett's political leanings and maybe his speech even last year, if that only changed a few people's minds, and then RuPaul's got it.
Mm-hmm.
Variety Talk, I have switched over from. I thought just the sheer amount of buzz and magnitude and ratings, and the fact that he's on 5 nights a week all summer long basically would put Colbert in first here. But him not winning anything last weekend. John Oliver won one of the 2 at least last weekend, was a real surprise. Maybe both. I've gone back to John Oliver, and that goes back to our repeat idea as well.
Yeah, I think he's the smart choice. He won. There was one category, it may have been an interactive one, where there were 2 John Olivers in the same category, and we're like, oh, there's no way he can win. And he ended up winning one of those 2.
But that was actually picture editing.
Picture editing. Oh, that's an important one. I would say if there's an upset, it will be Colbert. I think the fact that he's such a beloved guy and he's hosting will really, really help him. So I wouldn't be surprised if he won. But Oliver, yeah.
When was the last time we had a host win on the same year they were hosting?
It's been a while. Well, I guess the year that the 5 reality show.
Well, yeah, they had to. But a year where it wasn't like a lock.
It's been a while.
That might be worth an article.
They're sentimental that way in terms of thanks for hosting our show.
No. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, sometimes it lines up, but it's not.
I've got John Oliver. I think actually the spoiler there is Samantha Bee and not necessarily Colbert. Samantha Bee.
She won last weekend.
Yeah, she won the writing award over Colbert. They both had a variety special nominated, and Samantha Bee won writing over Colbert. I think it's common knowledge, like we talk about how Emmy voters don't know a lot about trends, but it's been enough in the air that female late night talk show hosts are like not a dime a dozen. It's very rare for them to get on the air. It's very rare for them to break through. I think there's a contingent that will want to see her win for that reason. So I think it's John Oliver with Samantha Bee as your spoiler. And Colbert having third, so he's not out of it.
The other problem with me on Colbert winning, and I would love to see that happen, honestly, is he couldn't even win at the Creative Arts, like beating James Corden on special, and he couldn't beat Samantha Bee on writing for his election night coverage. So I just don't know. Variety special would have been voted on by everybody that voted on program series. So I don't see the support that he didn't win. They didn't win anything last weekend. The variety sketch series, of all the 27 we're discussing, if SNL doesn't win, I may be done predicting. It showed us that it has the support last weekend.
Yeah.
All of its previous competitors who've won, Amy Schumer and Key and Peele, are gone. So, I mean, everything is laid out perfectly for it to win. I can't, and none of the other, you put the ratings together of the other five and they don't match SNL. So and we've seen them win guest star. I mean, I just can't imagine anything winning.
It's the perfect storm for SNL. I think it's been 24 years since they won this category, and that was in 1993. So, and of course, the category was combined for many of those years with talk shows and sketch shows.
Right.
We would see The Daily Show get on sweeps and David Letterman, but I think it's time. It's time.
And SNL also wins directing.
Yeah.
It almost always does.
If SNL can't win these two, it almost probably can never win again in the history of the.
That's a good point. If it can't win sketch series this year, I'm never picking it again. That's what I said also with Hugh Laurie losing once again. I'm never picking Hugh Laurie. Sorry, Hugh.
We said that about John Hamm, and then at the last minute on his winning year, we all did switch over to him. It just felt like a tidal wave. And then I think we've all got John Oliver winning writing, correct? But again, Samantha Bee is right there.
And
right,
SNL too, because SNL is the apple in the bag of oranges. It's the only sketch show nominated. It had its high-profile Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton election political year. So yeah, I think it's one of those three: Oliver, Samantha Bee, or Saturday Night Live.
That's a good point about SNL being the orange amongst apples.
Key and Peele won that last year, right? Variety series, right? No,
I think John Oliver took writing.
That was at the Creative Arts. That's why I was trying to remember. What did Key and Peele win?
Maybe costumes or something.
No, they won something themselves. Look it up real quick, Daniel. I don't want to end the video with us making a mistake, but they won variety sketch. That's what it was on the main telecast.
Is the most writerly. I mean, he sits at a desk and he gives these speeches and he does these really long journalistic reports. I think he's going to keep winning writing for a very long time.
I think you're right. Okay. Well, you've now got lots of options. Most of the categories I think we agree on, but there's a good 8 or 10 that we really are off from each other. So you've got until Sunday at right before the show starts to make your predictions. And there's well over 2,000 people have already done that. So jump in there with them. And watch all of our live coverage this weekend before and after the show.